Everyone, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And it's a very unusual time in which we all live. And I think the most common saying of 2020 is, "I think you're on mute," and the other one is, "Can you see what I'm presenting yet?" So hopefully you can all see the slides now. It's great to be at the Virtual Housing Festival 2020, and today I'm going to be looking with my colleague Gillian Ide at a digital technologist for housing and really some of the changes and developments that is delivering. So how you can improve value, improve customer experience, and reduce costs. We're going to have some live demonstrations as part of today as well. So. We'll certainly be keeping things interesting. So Britannic, just quickly for anyone who doesn't know who Britannic are, we've actually got a lot of experience within the housing sector, worked within the housing sector for over 15 years now. And Britannic as a business, we were established in 1984. So way back in the day, a lot of experience in delivering business communications and contact center. And over the years, we've really evolved the solution capability. We have our own software development team within the business, and also a sister company that we work with developing digital solutions and very much following an agile methodology and approach. So support over 500 organizations, a lot of contact center deployments, and of course with that comes a good insight into a lot of the changes that have taken place around customer interaction. Very much an end-to-end capability, and the way in which we work is through partnerships. So it's not about working with many thousands of organizations. Every customer has an account manager. We take the time to understand customers' businesses, challenges, problems, and direction of travel. And then it's about how do we use and apply technology to underpin how people need to work and the problems they need to solve and the improvements they want to achieve. So as I said, end-to-end capability, so unified comms. So big change in the way in which people communicate. It's no longer just a phone system these days, and it hasn't been for some time. And of course, as we move over to aspects such as omni-channel, it's not just about blending different channels together. It's actually about being able to pivot and use different methods during live contact. Video is clearly been a big growth area. We've all experienced it. We use so many different collaboration tools today, and I think this is probably my seventh tool I've used since lockdown. So a lot of agility, a lot of different tools that people are using. We've got a lot of experience around networking and cloud and infrastructure to underpin a lot of the way in which the technology is delivered. And we, as I said, where we're seeing the future, a lot of growth around applications and application development. The obligatory logo slide. So you'll recognize a number of customers up there within the housing sector and local authorities. But we also work with commercial business as well. We've seen a lot of adoption of technology across all sectors. But of course, within the financial services market, traditionally been quite an innovative and fast-paced, fast-moving industry. We're able to take learning from those customers and help to apply best practice and innovation back into the housing sector. So some of the drivers that we're seeing within the housing sector is certainly using, looking at cost savings, look at efficiencies. There's definitely pressures within the housing sector around cost. So we've been working with customers to look at how we can help to deliver automation, how we can help to support self-service, the things such as tenant portals and self-service. It's been a direction of travel that housing's been moving through for some time. There's, of course, lots of different applications that are used, and I'll come on to that and some of the challenges that it creates. And, it's been a sector that has had a lot of change. So there's been a lot of mergers of different housing associations coming together, which really adds to the stack of technology that people use, and some of the requirements and challenges for system integration to really join up people and systems and trying to deliver a smooth and seamless service for end customers. Clearly, mobiles are a massive, massive growth area. People, there's more mobile phones on the planet now than there are people, and so many people have smartphones, and that tends to be the interface of choice. A lot of people are very much digitally savvy. Absolutely, there are people that need support through it, but certainly the younger population coming through have really grown up using and relying upon digital technology, and that's changed a lot of the tools and channels and communication expectations people have got into newer wave methods such as social media and WhatsApp. So again, it's about how do we communicate, how do we embrace those channels, and how do we bring it into the organization to enhance the service and interaction that we have. There's traditionally been some very large housing management systems and platforms, and sometimes we've talking through with customers. It's been quite hard to embrace innovation and move things forward. Invariably there's been very large price tags associated with integration or bespoke development. So again, we're working with customers to look at commercially off-the-shelf applications, but also how do we blend that very much with an agile, user-centric design approach perspective as well. We're definitely seeing a move to the cloud, so more and more people are using unified communications. There's been a growth in aspects such as Microsoft Teams for things such as video collaboration. So whether we're integrating with Microsoft Teams, whether we're moving other communication platforms such as Mitel or Avaya to the cloud, and whether we're really bringing together people and different communication choices, it's definitely been a direction of travel. And I think what's important is trying to move to this agile working, moving to problem solving and iterative developments within businesses is to try and take away some of the complexity of how technology is built and delivered. So moving to a low code, no code approach, as opposed to having to, hard code and, take a long time for developments. It's about putting customers in the control and trying to use things like, business logic to actually configure and evolve systems, as opposed to lots of programming. We're of course seeing a big change around AI and machine learning and robotic process automation, and this really is tied up around not just delivering greater efficiencies, but also about getting better insight into data that everyone has and how you act upon it. So just a few things to consider before I hand over to Gil. So it's important to understand customers want choice in how they communicate. So there's certain functions that people are happy to self-serve with, and then there's other aspects that they'll want to talk through, and they'll want help and support for problem solving. And invariably this is determined by the urgency and the emotion involved. So if it's something that's very important to that individual and complex, it will require support. It will require real-time communication and guidance and assistance. So things such as voice and web chat and video communications, a good way of helping to talk people through the support that they need. And other aspects such as email or SMS, it could be a question that goes in and actually getting a response at an appropriate time. It doesn't have to be immediate at that point. It is important to be able to enable people to move from one channel to another. So it shouldn't be, we only do these things on web chat as an example, because if somebody gets stuck, if they need help, it's just going to add to the frustration and impact the customer experience. And of course, when you do finally connect to those people, that they're having to start all over again, explain the frustration and challenges that they've got. It takes longer to talk people, talk through the situation with people and calm the waters, as it were, and then try and find a way forward. So again, it's about how do you move from one to another? How do you provide the choice to connect people? And when you do, it's very much incredibly useful to actually provide the content and the context to that conversation. Don't want and expect people to start all over again. A few stats, and we'll make these slides available after the presentation. We've got a lot of research and information in the industry and contact center and contact industry. So 71% of customers want a consistent experience across all channels, but only 29% say they actually get it. So I was running a workshop with a customer yesterday, and we were looking at some of the newer channels that they want to embrace to provide choice and meet the new demographics of customers coming through. But then it's about what's the experience, how do you manage it, what are the SLAs, and actually how do you bring it into a common architecture that you don't have silos of managing things in a different way. So consistency is really important from an expectation and from a customer experience perspective. The other one is speed. So customers expect a response from a customer, within a short period of time. They don't want to wait days for responses anymore. And then the other one is customer experience. So it's been really important. It's been an area of focus, certainly within the housing sector, but actually across so many different industries that we work within. And of course, what we've seen with the global pandemic is there's a drive to try and achieve greater efficiencies, but we mustn't lose sight of the importance of customer experience. There is a delta that if you're not focused on delivering smooth and frictionless interaction, actually it costs more and takes more resource to service customers anyway. So it's important to keep that front and center. So there's a lot of things we can do to reduce costs. So whether we're looking at self-service, web portals, automation, we've worked with a housing association recently to build a telephone interface for identification and verification. So we're receiving around about 3,000 calls a day. The majority of those have to go through an ID&V process. We've automated it, so it's voice automated. So the tenants are able to give the information to go through the ID&V process. It saves their staff having to do it. And within the first couple of weeks, it already saved 44 hours of time for that team. So there's a lot of different areas we can look at. And of course, we need to consider this not just in real time or voice communication, but importantly around digital interactions. And Gil will share some of those things as well. And it is that delta. If you get it right, customers want choice. They want the 24/7. They want to self-service where they're comfortable, but then they need support and guidance and personalization at the same time. So if we can get it right, we can reduce the effort for the business and the effort for the customer, which is very much a win-win. Something else to consider is how people get information. So what information is needed to support customers through the contact center. So it can be 5 to 7 applications as the average. And of course, that takes time to dip into these different systems to support customers. We're working with customers to basically provide an overlay at that contact, whether that's for their end customers or their staff, to again improve the efficiency of information access and workflows. There's a lot of information available, so whether it's on intranets or websites or FAQ databases. So again, the majority of information people would need is available on the website, but is it easy to find? Is it easy to navigate? So how do we join this this data together, and actually how do we use it to improve the service? 14%, it's believed that 14% of resource within the contact center is spent looking for information. So that's a waste of resource. It's pretty frustrating. It's not a fun thing to have to do, and it impacts upon the customer experience. So a lot of this is about how do we provide the right information at the right time based upon the context of that inquiry. Extreme ends of the scale. So we've helped people automate processes, but we've also helped people personalize the services delivered. So I think there's going to be more and more real-time personalization moving forward, and in contact personalization. So it's about using technology to automate where possible, but then it's also about using technology to augment, to support, and recommend how to add value to certain situations, how to build a greater understanding of customers, demands, behaviors, personas, and then how do you match the right people at the right time in the right way. And it's not just about delighting customers and making life easy for them and staff. We've got to consider users, and we've got to consider customers, and happy staff generally equals happy customers, which is great. But also there's a good financial argument for using automation. And the slide there, we've got a lot of, as I said, a lot of stats. So these are industry stats looking at some of the cost of using people to deal with inquiries versus technology. Okay, so I'll hand over to Gillian at this point to pick up the next part of the presentation.
Yeah. There we go. Thank you, Jonathan. Let me just move these around so you can see. So, as Jonathan was saying, that there's so many ways now in which kind of people are looking to communicate into your organisation. And for years, the tradition has always been kind of phone call, and it started off with someone would ring up and they'll just get straight through. And then the introduction of IVR came in, which suddenly meant that you could route to the right place. It meant people could potentially initially start to self-serve. And what we're finding now is that with so many other channels is that increase in data. Again, there's no triage there first. There's no IVR on your digital channels. And this is what you're able to do. And in fact, you're able to do in some ways far more easily than you can with a phone call, because you can start to look at the tools that you can have, look at the design thinking. So, okay, our phone IVR works because we're routing people through into the right department at the right time. So let's have a look on email. Can we do the same with that? Can we look at what's the content of that email? Actually, is that email a transactional response because someone is just asking a question around maybe they're asking a question that doesn't need to come into your centre. So they might be asking yourselves as housing associations about council tax. Well, actually, do you want that to come in to your contact centre, or do you want to have triaged that before it even reaches you and drawn back to them to say, thanks to the income, actually you need to go and talk to your local authority about this. And there's no reason why that can't be done on WhatsApp, on text, through web chat, and through your social channels. So it's looking at what are those transactional activities that are coming in that you can actually start to remove from coming into your contact centre, which gives agents the time and the energy to be able to deal with more complex cases and interact with those individuals that need that. Jonathan was talking about the IDB project we've just done. We can do that with a web chat. There's no point kind of with a bot. You can come in and you can do the IDV that you need to, interacting with your CRM or your HMS before it gets to an agent. Again, looking at we normally have a web chat is normally 10 interactions. Well, actually, if we remove half of those, what was a 6-minute conversation is now a 3-minute conversation. So you're building those benefits that you've got. You're improving the agent experience, but by improving the agent experience, because they are having the information that they need to solve it at first contact. You've solved X percentage before it's even got to the agents. So certainly that customer experience where it's a transactional activity has come in, and I'll be able to interact with you when I choose, whether that's at 11 o'clock at night or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But if you've directed me to where I can solve it myself, or you've given me the information that I need without having to wait for a response, or even if you've set my expectation, someone will be back with you, but it will be within a couple of hours. So then you stop that multi-contact. And this is where you can really start to look at the benefits that you've had when you kind of, however many years ago, put your IVR in and you saw the difference in that handle time. You can start to do that same design thinking across all the channels. So let's give you a brief example. So you've got a tenant that's struggling to pay their rent and potentially with what's currently going on in the global pandemic, that some of these questions are going to become more and more prevalent. And what you don't want to do is stop that contact, but what you want to do is try and build that journey. So they're getting the experience they need, but also you're allowing the agent to have the information when they're there. You're setting that expectation, so you're taking them on that journey. They want to contact you on WhatsApp because actually they don't have any credit. So WhatsApp is the easiest way to contact you because they can do it through their Wi-Fi. They're then kind of discussing with a bot and the IDV is being done. And an expectation is thank you for that. Thank you for your phone number. It's now been routed to the right department. You've set that expectation so that they're not now trying to phone in to talk to you because you've said someone will be back in contact with you within X amount of time. And then that has gone straight to the payments team rather than into the contact centre, who have done what I call the Chuckle Brothers effect, which if the contact centre get it in, they look at what to do, they pass it on to someone else. That's the me to you effect. Actually, no, it's bypassed that and gone straight to the payments team, and they can resolve it at first contact. And I think this is the key now, and this is the fantastic nature of some of the digital applications that we have, is that we can really increase that first contact resolution. So what I'm doing now, again, with a bit more, just going to stop sharing that and then reshare with old technology. There we go. So how can we do this? So I've set up a little kind of demo to show you. So kind of there are a number of tools, and what I don't want to do is make this into kind of product orientated. What I'm trying to show is the journey that information can take, and the journey of that kind of how you're able to interact and set that expectation, and how you're able to kind of look at where an email is coming from, where a communication is coming from, or what's the content, and then route it in the correct way. So I've got a message in here. Again, I'm using the rent experience. Can you help me? So if I send this off, I can look. I've now created that journey. So kind of within these systems, you can really start to look at kind of what is there, what kind of, how do I want to interact with someone? So if that first contact is setting that expectation, well, kind of build those templates to go back. It doesn't need to come in to an organisation to then kind of copy and paste the template of response back. You can start to automate that because that's the transactional aspect. And what you want to do is remove those transactional aspects until it becomes that personal aspect. This is the automation to personalization. Kind of solve the first bits, kind of build that interaction at the start, and then work with the customer when you have that information in front of you and you're able to build that. So what we've got now is, in it comes. So here we go. We've got kind of, you've set that expectation, but also what we're trying to do is now collect extra details. So you're looking at that kind of, what is your tenancy number? What is the best contact number to phone you on? So not only are you updating your CRM because you're getting the latest details on someone, you've done the ID and V piece, and now you're allowing kind of that expectation to be set to build back and kind of build that conversation and start it with an agent where it needs to be. So you can go down and you can look at kind of, and how do we kind of enable that? And that's looking at various different filters that can be put in. So here, again, with this payment example I've just done, you can be starting to look at key phrases, but that might be coming from, it might be who it's from. So if you've got kind of those tenants that are more vulnerable, you can start to again offer them a more personalised service because you're routing them straight to their housing officer where they need to be in contact. It could be still what the subject is, and it could be that kind of it's the department it's going to, but within that department you want to start to look at kind of the specialists within that. And then we can start to apply those rules and start to kind of build, again, it's enabling you to build that process. You know how your business works best, and you know how we can develop that and move that forward. And not only can these rules and processes be added to emails, but we can also kind of start to look at other communication. So it's the same with WhatsApp. We've just done a clearing with the university, and they had 4,500 WhatsApp conversations. It's the first time the channel's been open, because that demographic that they are working with actually doesn't want to speak to anyone. And this is where you can start to, again, look at what's the demographic of people that are talking to you, who are your tenants, and let's offer that personalised experience while looking at how we can kind of siphon off that transaction and siphon off kind of what needs to, and until you get to the what needs to be dealt with by an agent if something does. So again, we're able to kind of offer these interactions and transactions across many different channels. So kind of you can look kind of, is it Facebook? Is it the social medias that your audience are interacting with? Is it a bot that you want to put on your website to help someone fill in a form? Because actually some of your tenants struggle to fill in the form, and you might want to put kind of several languages on a bot to help them fill in those forms. So you're not having to write where you've got the kind of the chance of human error. You're building that communication and interaction with the customer, but again, it's in the channel that they want to work with you with. And then you can start to get all of the insight and all the engagement around that, but it's all in one place. And if you kind of, the other thing that we can then start to do is start to filter that kind of into kind of one area. It's going to be a struggle now because it's with Zoom, but if I can just, no, wrong one, sorry. You can start to feed it through. So we've got an example where we can feed it through into Ignite. Here we go. We've got a WhatsApp conversation that I've just been having here. I'll just move this out of the way. So with all the different. So if I look at this again, I've collected that information before I've even had to have that conversation. I've confirmed kind of the details that I need to. I've done that ID&V process, and now it can be handed back to an agent if it needs to be, or that person could be directed off to the portal or a part of the website from which they're able to self-serve. So that's a very quick example of how we can kind of start to build those aspects. There we go. There's so many different sharing tools over the course of the thing. So then kind of the next aspect and the next tools that are coming in is looking at kind of IoT. And with that, there's so many aspects now. If you look at the Homes Fit for Habitation Act, and you look at how you can proactively be working and interacting with your tenants to look at kind of the humidity or boilers broken or kind of how to kind of hone on that fix before potentially it's noticed. And that means then you're proactively looking after your stock. So kind of you may do 6 monthly visits to tenants to see how the houses are. Well, if that humidity starts at kind of the day after you visited, that's 6 months that could build up. By that time, you might have mold. You might, but with some of these devices, you can start to kind of get all of that information before that happens. And that means, again, you can proactively educate. Oh, if you have a shower, open your window. This will prevent mold. And then if you start to look at kind of people wanting to interact with you about the Homes Fit for Habitation Act and looking at kind of refunds and looking at getting compensation for mold, actually you can start to look at, well, do you know what, we proactively work with these customers. Kind of the amber warning that we had has gone out to them, and given them an education piece. And the next warning that we've had has gone to the housing management officer, who's gone around to talk to them. And then it's at the third warning that we've had through that said, actually, mould is in 20 days. And that's when you can really start to kind of hone your processes and how you interact with someone. But you're not having to look at the gigabytes of data that's coming in from all your housing stock. What you are doing is you're acting on your on the information that's coming to you that needs to be acted upon, and you're setting those next step kind of interactions. So again, this is it, in action again. It's kind of the device, kind of the device that's within the boiler. Kind of, there's a breakage. It's not working efficiently. It may be that it's picked up that there might be some fuel poverty in there because the humidity is high, but the heating is low. So you can really start to kind of interact and take that first step. And then you've triggered that alert. You haven't triggered an alert to say this house is fine. You've triggered an alert to say something needs to be done. And you start to, then you can inform the tenant, and you can inform kind of the maintenance team without it coming in to an agent necessarily and moving forward. Because that can slow down those time slots. And then kind of what you've got then is someone coming in to interact with your tenant. You might set a password for the maintenance team before they come around, but kind of potentially from the moment that boiler has broken, it might be less than 24 hours before someone's in there to fix it, because you're getting the right data at the right time to the right people. And this is the beauty of the systems that are available now, is that you're able to kind of build on this and build this process and really start to look at what you want to achieve and work backwards, rather than trying to kind of take that journey without that end goal in sight. So kind of, and this is where kind of, because you've got this pick and mix of systems, you can start to go, well, actually, kind of, yes, we've got these devices in, that's great, but what do we do with that data? Okay, so okay, we've got Inbox. We can start to assign those rules so that when we kind of are taking those next steps, when we have that it's just exceeded the threshold by 10%, we can choose a channel in which we then interact with the tenant to give them that education piece. Or actually, it's gone further than that because it's a water leak. So kind of, that's a red alert. That's gone straight to the contractor or straight to a repairs team, and enabled you to kind of, again, cut that and fix that error or that breakage as soon as you possibly can. You're not waiting for the tenant who's been at work all day or is on holiday, and they come back 2 weeks later and the house is flooded because no one's been able to pick up the fact that there's a leak there. So again, it's that proactivity that you're able to start to bring into your business. Here we go. Let's go for a next screen share. Here we go. So move this out of the way. So again, we can start to look at, so with the platform that we got, we can start to look at how we kind of set those thresholds, and then you can start to say, well, what do we want to happen after that threshold has been met? So it's gone over. So then we can go back into here and we can start to look at kind of, all right, here we go. We've got a red alert coming through. So what do we want to do with these red alerts? And you can start to build those rules up. You can start to kind of, you can bring it in however you want. You can start to look at kind of, what are the next steps? Kind of, what emails need to be attached to that? Can I forward something straight onto the tenant? Do I assign it straight to someone within the business that can deal with this, rather than it coming into a central pot? They've got their SLA, then it goes to another person that's got their SLA. We can start to kind of build all of these kind of interactions that you're having, so that journey is as seamless as possible. And this can be done over kind of a multitude of different sensors, because kind of working with Daisy and other partners, you can start to normalize that data. So you might have current IoT devices out there, and you might want some new ones. One might give it to you in percentages, one might give it to you in Roman numerals, one might give it to you in decimals. But what you need to then do is normalize that so that you've got a clear picture across your whole stock of what's going on, and you're able to set those thresholds, and you're able to kind of build and work kind of with your tenants to do that education piece. And the more proactive you're being, the better for your stock, the better you're looking after your stock, the less you have to end up replacing bathrooms, etc. Because you've picked that up, and any claims that come against you under the Homes Fit for Habitation Act, you've got that data on tap. So there are positives to it, but what you're not doing is using those positives, but then really, really fighting against the amount of data that is coming in. So then kind of the flip side, and I realise that the time's coming short, so I'll kind of go through this. The flip side is then kind of, it's not just your customer experience, but it's your agent experience. It's the internal experience. If I'm getting transactional activity after transactional activity, kind of where's my kind of measure of growth? Where's my personal development in that? Whereas actually, if you're kind of improving that agent experience because the transaction is done. I'm not copying and pasting someone's name or a new address or a new phone number from an email into a CRM system, because actually we've integrated that, and you're able to pick that up and do that without it coming in. So that low value and transactional task is being removed, and you're then able to use the expertise that you've got within your staff to start to deliver that, and then you can start to really kind of report on how that's doing, and you can start to motivate your staff. Currently you're dealing with X amount. I tell you what, if you manage to deal with 5 more a day, then you get rewarded for that. Actually, if you do close the cases down on the housing management system so that the process is being followed, then again you've benefited from that, because your organisation has benefited from the fact that you're closing things off and you're getting that done. You're re-impressing that learning that you want someone to do by rewarding someone for it. So you're able to visualise it. You can visualise the impact that they are having on your organisation. How one individual is kind of benefiting the organisation. Because you know what, you've sent a maintenance person kind of you've detailed what's wrong, and actually 2 of them have gone in the van and they've got a ladder because it's a second floor problem, rather than someone turning up and going, oh, sorry, I can't fix this, it's a second floor problem, I need a ladder and I haven't got a second person in the car with me. Well, that's wasted money, that's wasted effort. And you can really start to drill down on what the outcomes are and what the productivity is, because you're engaged with your staff and you're really showing them what the impact that they have is. I think as time is getting a bit short, I was going to show you this in practice, but kind of if people want to see how this works, I'm quite happy to kind of, after this, if you want to contact us to go through in more detail. But it's when you're looking at your transition, whether it's digital, whether it's customer experience, don't forget the internal aspect. Don't forget that actually, by making the agent experience and your internal employee experience as good as possible, then that always is going to have a positive impact back on that tenant and that customer that's interacting with your organisation. So what I'll do now is I will just hand back to Jonathan.
Thank you, Gil. So I think on this one. I'll do the old-fashioned way and scroll past the others. Okay, so we've talked a lot, shared a lot of views and things we're seeing in the marketplace. We are working with customers to basically redesign how service is delivered. It's not starting again; it's augmenting how people have worked. So part of it is we're taking very much a design thinking approach. So where are you today? What are the problems you're experiencing? what would you like to improve? What would you like to address? And what's the service that you want to deliver? It's a great opportunity just to take a step back and look at some of these processes that have been in operation for many years. There's a lot of inefficiency that gets built into business over time, and of course, over time things change, right? And what's been the case for many years is it's been quite hard to affect change through the nature of some of the technology that's been delivered. So very much taking an open and an agile approach and using web services and open APIs, we're able to help customers embrace change a lot more quickly today. We've got a great toolkit, so we've got a number of off-the-shelf components that help get people started, but we've got a great toolkit and capability, and that's actually about exposing functionality. It's not about large, complex rollout programs. One of the clients we work with, they actually came to us. They'd won a very large contract with the government. They had to fulfill it, and within 5 days from start to finish of demoing this technology, we were live with a platform that was able to cope with a big influx of emails into their business. They had over 10 weeks, over 200,000 emails into the organization, which would have really swamped their customer service team. It had put them in a position where they were having to try and scale and ramp and add additional members of staff incredibly quickly, which would have required recruitment, training, and the challenges of people working at home during lockdown. And the system we built with them, within 4 weeks, they were in a position where we'd help them build all the rules. They'd set these things up themselves as well, and they hit 94% successful first contact resolution on the emails they were getting in. And of course, I think what's really important is the ability to blend these different channels. So what's important, set a vision. How are things changing? How does the organization want to change? Get started with that. That's the frame. That's where we're heading to. We don't need to be prescriptive, because things will change, and we need to embrace change and take feedback. So it's very much a user-centric design. Let's consider things from a point of view of the customer. So there's a lot of reviews that we do around customer journey mapping. Let's consider the efficiency and productivity gains for people. And then let's start to take some areas, fix one thing at a time, take an iterative approach, demonstrate success, get on this path of change. You don't have to boil the ocean. You don't have to do everything at once. These are not long, drawn-out, multi-year projects. These are fast, quick, agile projects that can fit into an overall strategic frame. We tend to look at areas where there's high volume of interaction, where it doesn't make sense for things to be done repetitively over and over again. It's not adding value to the customer. It's not adding value to the staff. It's not adding value to the business. I gave the example of the ID&V process and being able to automate a large proportion of those 3,000 calls coming into the business a week. Similarly, we did the same with an AI chatbot for a council, where they were getting many thousands of contacts every month about bin collections. Is that a good thing? To have people sat on a phone and waiting in a queue just to ask the question of when the bin's going to be available. Now, of course, that information was on the website. People weren't easily finding it, so they were putting a call in, and staff were having to handle all those calls. Now, we moved to implemented a system with the customer, which delivered up to 95% cost saving in dealing with those inquiries. So they were able to automate the vast majority of those inquiries into the business. And of course, over time, they're looking at other services and digitizing and automating those. So they're on that journey. So I think, that there is a lot of opportunity to take a step back and review how things are changing. And, we'd love the opportunity to help. And I think, we've got a lot of experience to share. We've got, some very interesting technologies. We've shown a few today, but there's a lot more capability and a lot more use cases that we could run through. I'm conscious of the fact we had a couple of minutes left, and I think we had some questions to go through. So let's just have a look if I can stop this. And
I think the main question is kind of with someone, how will technology help where 80% of all transactions are completed by the contact team from end to end? And I think again that's looking at what is transactional. So what potentially might a tenant choose to do at 11 o'clock at night where they can't do it with the contact team, and actually what can be self-serve. So things like setting up direct debits or making payments and making arrangements can be done by the individual. And again, kind of, it's looking at that experience. It'd be good to talk to you further, Kim, about that and how we can help. And I'm conscious that I think that we potentially hit our. So
if I just quickly add to that point as well. So, you don't have to automate the end-to-end process. So if there's certain steps that are conducted and transacted, it might be you choose certain ones to automate in that overall workflow or process. So, the example that Gil showed with the WhatsApp chats of, going through ID&V, collecting certain information and then handing over to a member of staff to deal with. So we can start in an automated manner. We can deliver some efficiency and savings there, and actually make it easier for the customer because, quite frankly, who likes sitting on the phone in a queue for many minutes or indeed can be hours when they could put the information in and get routed to someone to deal with it. It's a good way of freeing resource up, and it's also a good way of solving individual aspects of that flow as you move forward. So don't think you have to do every single thing. You can gain some efficiencies by picking areas that you could automate, you could digitize, and then it becomes a flow into people where they're presented with that information, the context, and they're much more empowered to provide a streamlined service and move towards a first call resolution as well.
Brilliant.